Italian Football Podcast.
Without us saying the same things that we say all the time, what can we do about it? We know the problem. We know that this is never going to change. What can we actually do, Nima?
The thing that has to be done, the thing that absolutely has to be done, is that UEFA has to be nothing more than an admin bod, meaning UEFA should not be hoarding cash that should be going to the clubs. And I love that. Before we do this, I absolutely love the cognitive dissonance on display by people in the English-speaking media all over the world, who cannot fathom, who first of all don't even know what the European Super League is, and spew absolute bollocks about how, they're going to leave the domestic league. That was never on the table. Only in your head, only in your and Gary Neville and Kaveh Solhekkol's head did that happen. In the actual planet Earth, the third planet from the sun, in the year of our Lord 2023, that never happened. So can we please stop this nonsense? Secondly, this notion that Serie A is mismanaged is somehow is irrelevant to the discussion. Yes, the Serie A is mismanaged. It is run by clowns. I think we talk about this more than anyone else does who works in Italian football, who covers Italian football. No one does it as much as we do. So that is also true. But it doesn't change the fact that the Premier League is now so big that it swallows such a giant percentage of the complete revenue streams available, because again, we don't live on a planet of infinite resources. We live in a planet of finite resources. The market keeps growing, but it's not growing infinitely, which means that when you have someone who swallows such a huge slash of the pie of the revenues, the others could build stadiums on par with the Jetsons in terms of modernization, and it would still not even have a dent on the impact it would have in trying to eat up the lead that the EPL inevitably has.
That's brilliantly put. That's the best I've heard.
It just boggles my mind how people don't understand that.
No,
and it has nothing to do with that. And also, no one is criticizing the Premier League for doing their bloody jobs. They've done their jobs. That's great. They've done brilliantly. The others haven't. Now, the fact of the matter is this. Either the EPL and even the Championship, just watch, because the next step is turning the Championship into EPL 2. So,
the Championship is going to be the second best league in the world soon. That's for sure.
So just watch this space. So what's going to happen is, unless Spain and every single league from in all over Europe, the traditional big leagues, unless they go together and create a European Super League without the Premier League clubs and without UEFA's involvement, they will have zero chance of existing other than as feeder clubs to the Premier League clubs. It's as simple as that. And as James Horncastle so brilliantly tried to explain to one of the dumbest people who's ever existed on Twitter, this is not a cyclical issue. This is now to the point where Microsoft was before the US government came in and had to break it up because it was monopolizing the entire market. And that's what the Premier League is doing now. It has become this giant money monster. It's not a cyclical thing. We live in a Premier League hegemony now. And if you want the other leagues to survive, they have to do something. UEFA will never do something.
Microsoft is a great example, actually, of monopolization of football. Just before I expand on that, I just had a quick look. The Championship has spent more money on transfers in January than Serie A.
I mean, there you go.
Just to point that out right now.
Exactly. And this is what's going to happen unless they do something about it. It's an existential crisis for every single league except for the Premier League.
Well, what's happening? I'll tell you what's happening. This is the final step of a process which probably began over 30 years ago, where originally the European leagues swallowed up the South American leagues, like Brazilian League, the Argentine League. I mean, these leagues were world-class leagues. I mean, during the 1960s, for example, like people that criticised Pelé for never having played in Europe, for example. Well, actually, during the 1960s, certainly the first half of the 1960s, the Brazilian League was the best league in the world. When Pelé was there playing with Santos, and the Copa Libertadores was the best competition in the world, better than the Champions League or the European Cup as it was known then. But these leagues continue to remain incredibly strong up until into the 1980s. I mean, you have a look at the World Cup squads of Brazil, of Argentina. I mean, even that Brazil 1982 squad. I mean, pretty much the entire squad almost. Falcao was at Roma, but pretty much almost everybody else still played in Brazil as recently as 1982. So it started off with gobbling up the South American leagues. Then, obviously, in the 1990s, we saw with the fall of communism. We saw the leagues, the East European leagues, were the ones that were swallowed up. So we saw, the Yugoslavian, Balkan leagues. Even the former Soviet Union great teams from the former Soviet Union, like Dynamo Kiev from Ukraine, and these kind of teams that had great teams. These and Steaua Bucharest from Romania, like these sides were gobbled up. So they were swallowed up and became feeder leagues. Then you had the likes of Portugal. Portuguese teams, the Dutch teams in particular.
Dutch league is dead.
Like Ajax, Ajax, one of the most greatest teams ever. PSV, Feyenoord, these three of the biggest clubs in Europe became feeder teams.
Let me remind people that PSV Eindhoven are one of the teams that have won a continental treble. Like, we're not talking about we're talking football royalty here.
No, that's it. You speak to a 15-year-old, 16-year-old now, and it's very sad. They'll look at teams like Ajax and PSV, and they'll just think that they're Accrington Stanley level teams. But these are legends and giants.
Hamburg in Bundesliga. I mean,
that's where we get now. But but then it became in the late 90s. It became after the Bosman ruling, it became Holland, Belgium, Portugal. Who else have we got? I mean, Scotland. Even Scotland had great teams. So that these level leagues were gobbled up. And now what we've had in the last, 10 to 15 years, but certainly in the last decade, and now, it's now complete now. I don't want to talk about if we don't stop it, this is what's going to happen, like Agnelli is doing. It's not. We're there. It's happened.
It's already happened.
It's already happened. Look at these. Obviously, it takes a few years.
And another thing I wanted to raise with you on the EPL as well,
translated on the pitch, and it will be a Premier League team winning it every year. Of course.
And another thing that is that's overlooked as well is this isn't just the revenue streams growing. When the revenue streams grow, they also become far more attractive to rich and powerful investors, meaning that the Premier League will also be the natural habitat of every billionaire in the world. Which even further makes them dominate. So unless
Qatar are in talks to buy over Liverpool.